What is up, guys? Rikakis here, and today we are going over the different exotic weapons that will be receiving buffs and nerfs in the upcoming 2.4.0 weapon balance patch. Now, Bungie has kind of kept this information about this upcoming weapon balance patch under wraps until extremely recently, where they just dumped all the information about these upcoming changes. Now, although you have installed a patch, and I'm sure you guys have noticed, the loading screen has finally changed. These differences, these changes with the weapon balance won't actually be installed into Destiny, won't actually be activated until the Rise of Iron drops. At least that's what Bungie have specifically said. Now, we're going to go over today, again, all of the exotics that have been impacted by these changes, so let's get started. First on the list, we have the Fabian strategy, which is receiving a buff, and I'm sure a lot of Titans out there are very glad to hear that. The Fabian strategy has been kind of criminally underpowered for the longest time. So, essentially, Bungie has said that they are doubling down on a Titan's role to hold the front line. The Fabian strategy users will now be able to hold down the trigger to melt enemies until none are left. Here are the changes that are impacting the Fabian strategy. Kills with this weapon now automatically load a portion of the magazine, which is very similar to what the bad Juju offers. When you kill an enemy, you're going to get some ammo back into the magazine. Fantastic for PvE especially. Furthermore, we have an increase to the base range of the Fabian strategy, plus 16% to be specific, and an increase to the base stability of 44%, which is absolutely massive. The Fabian strategy just got a lot better. Next, we have the Thorn, which of course is coming back to Destiny, being remade with Infusion in the Rise of Iron. This hand cannon is receiving a little bit of a nerf. Its base range has been reduced by 25%. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be not happy about that, but essentially, the Thorn had absurdly high range. In fact, the best range of all hand cannons with the Send It perk. So basically, this nerf just brings it into line with the other hand cannons in the game. I expect it to still be a major player when the Rise of Iron comes out. Moving on, we have the Universal Remote. This was definitely a weapon of contention within the Destiny community. Some people loved it and loved using it, and other people absolutely hated it. Well, the people who've hated it seem to have won, because Universal Remote has been nerfed quite a bit. Now, the two changes that have been made are, firstly, the bonus range granted by the exotic perk has been reduced by 75%, which no longer guarantees the maximum shotgun range. So the exotic perk's effect is a lot less. Furthermore, there has been an increase to the rate of fire of the Universal Remote, which you may be thinking is a good thing. However, this actually also lowers damage as a secondary effect. So, what essentially happened is that the Universal Remote's one-hit kill ability has been drastically lowered. The Universal Remote is going to be a lot of a harder gun to use, and I'm kind of worried about the fact that I don't want yet another exotic to be useless. Yes, the Universal Remote was really good. Yes, it was potentially like too annoying, verging on overpowered, but this seems like a huge nerf, and I really don't want to see yet another, again, just useless exotic that never gets used. Hopefully the Universal Remote will still see some play. Next we have, oh boy, the Dregs Promise. You know, probably thought of as one of the worst exotics in the entire game, arguably the worst exotic in the entire game. The Dregs Promise has seen little to no use in the Crucible, little to no use in PvE. It's just been crap. Like, it's just been absolute crap, but thankfully it is getting a buff. Now, what's happening to the Dregs Promise is that the damage, firstly, has been increased by 8%. So a blanket increase of 8% to the damage. Already pretty useful, but we have some more stuff going on as well. Secondly, they have increased the magazine size by 3, so you're going to be able to get one more burst out of the Dregs promise. Now, this all results in an optimal time to kill of 0.57 seconds for getting all headshots, which is 34 damage to the head for the critical, and that actually just really brings the Dregs promise in line with other sidearms. Like, literally before this buff, the Dregs promise was worse than other legendary sidearms in terms of time to kill, so this has kind of brought that back into line. Hopefully we're going to finally see some usage out of the Dregs promise, the only legendary exotic, at least for a few more days until the Rise of Iron hits. It's good to see this gun finally getting some love. Next, we actually have the Touch of Malice. Now, this is kind of getting a little bit of a nerf, not in terms of statistics or anything, but I'm sure you guys know, especially if you play the raid a lot on harder difficulties, that if you're using the Touch of Malice and you can use Blessing of Light, you can kind of get around the Touch of Malice self-deprecating effect, where it would hurt you every time you shoot it once it was done with its ammo in the magazine. Well, they've actually addressed this, and now Touch of Malice's self-damaging infliction now removes Blessing of Light as well. So that strategy, using Blessing of Light and a Touch of Malice, that is going to be nowhere near effective as it once was. Moving on, we have the Boolean Gemini. This is a really interesting exotic because a lot of people have it. It's a relatively easy process in order to get it, and it gives you a pretty decent exotic scout rifle. Thankfully, though, it has received a buff because it really wasn't seeing play. Now, what the buff is that they've added high caliber rounds as an intrinsic perk. So now the Boolean Gemini will just automatically get high caliber rounds with no downside, which means that if you're using the Boolean Gemini, you're going to cause a ton more flinch when you're shooting enemies at long range, which of course with a very accurate scout rifle like the Gemini is really good. Don't be mistaken, this is a pretty damn good buff. However, its time to kill is still pretty low when compared to other options like the Meta Multi-Tool comes to mind. It's definitely going to be more annoying when you verse people who are using the Boolean Gemini, because it's going to be harder to win those 1v1s because they're going to be causing a ton more flinch now. But again, its time to kill is still pretty low with that archetype. We'll have to see how much this buff actually, sees an improvement to the Boolean Gemini's usage in PvP. Now after that, we have the No Time to Explain. Now this is also getting a buff, and it's also getting an intrinsic perk added. This time, Headseeker. So your No Time to Explain will be exactly the same, except for it will automatically now get Headseeker as an intrinsic perk. That's good. Again, getting an entire perk and getting a very useful one like Headseeker. The No Time to Explain, I expect its usage to go up definitely a little bit. Not entirely sure whether it's going to become competitive because of course that archetype isn't doing too well right now, but we'll have to see. Regardless of all that, the No Time to Explain just got strictly better in both PvP and PvE, so definitely check that out. And that is going to wrap up all of the different buffs and nerfs coming to exotic weapons with the 2.4 weapon balance patch. Now, there was a lot more changes in this patch coming to non-exotic weapons, so stay tuned to the channel to be updated. Now, that's going to be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed and found this informative. Now, if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you want to see more Destiny content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day. The purpose of this guide is to best ease your transition into the new Rise of Iron expansion and to get you ready as quickly as possible for the new Wrath of the Machine raid coming out September 23rd.